Welcome, fight fans,
to the Fighters Boys Kick-Ass Podcast.
Your Fight Talk Authority.
Not to mention the most entertaining and talked about podcast with your kick-ass host, Richard ORTIZ.
You mad? Come at me, bro.
And his loyal kick-ass co-host, Senor Cole ESCOVEDO.
Streaming live and worldwide.
Coming to you all the way live from a little place somewhere in Cali. The Fighters Boys
Kick-Ass Podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Fighter's Voice Knockout Podcast. As you can see, there's somewhat of a facelift today. Co-host ESCOVEDO, the MMA veteran himself, is on location. He's actually, you know what, I'm going to put him on blast. He's on vacation. Well-deserved vacation for ESCOVEDO. He'll be back with us in 2 weeks. But with us in studio by way of Zoom, we have one of the highly decorated cutmans in the business. He's our guest co-host for the evening. That's Mr. Mike Rodriguez. You can catch him anytime on any PBC fight. He'll be the one on TV taking care of the cut. And with us, we're honored to have a highly decorated trainer. When you mention the Robert Garcias, the Emmanuel Stewarts, and the Freddie Roaches of the world, when it's all said and done, you're definitely going to mention Stephen, the Breadman Edwards, who's our guest tonight. Welcome to the show, Stephen. How you doing?
Doing good. How you guys doing?
I'm doing good, man. You know, Stephen, I'm very excited, you know, because I've been hearing so much about you. Every other sentence or every other word whenever I talk to Mike, and we talk every other day, I would say, and he mentions you constantly, and I'm putting two and two together, and whenever I hear the Breadman, I'm always thinking of Phagnasay, a Mexican American. I'm always thinking of the Breadman. But now, actually, it means feria, which means money, because you're money in the bank whenever you put your hands with the mittens or work in the corner of somebody. And tell us about, because I just want to jump right into it before we talk about your training career and for the love of the sport. Why the nickname Breadman and how long you had it, and only a person like you can rock that.
I had it since about, I'm going to say 91, when I got to high school. It's a movie called Cornbread Earl and Me.
Okay.
And I was a pretty good basketball player. So the first practice, I hit like a bunch of three-pointers, and I was like really, really hot. And they started giving out nicknames, and they just started calling me Cornbread. So that was my nickname throughout high school. So then as I got older, I started gambling and making money and stuff, and then they just dropped the corn off and just bread just stuck, and that's what it was. It really don't have much to do with boxing, but I've heard people make up stories on my nickname, like I don't know where it came from, but it originally came from basketball.
You know, that's old school terminology. Me and Mike both identify with that. Back in the day, you mentioned money. It was bread. Back in the day, man.
It kind of like, you know, like kind of like derived from that though. Like, and when I would bet on games and stuff like that, and I would hit them, and then you know, when I would shoot, they were like, "Man, your shot is bread." So it kind of, you know, it's like kissing cousins to money, but the actual original nickname came from playing basketball.
You know what I kind of like now that he mentions that, you know, because one thing about Steve and I, and we worked together a long time, is that, you know, we give each other the worst time. If somebody was to walk by and see us talking, they'd be like, "Man, are these two cats even like each other?" Because I didn't know about the cornbread part, but being corny and then bread, to me, that actually goes a little better, and we might even be able to bring that one back. But I will tell you this, Richard, and I have seen at some point in our friendship, I have verified, you know, those basketball stats. I have seen the actual newspaper clipping, so I'm going to let him get away with that, and we're going to call him the man. We're not going to call him cornbread.
Oh, man.
I'm taking it back to the archives, man. I bet you got a lot of clippings of that, man, and maybe some records that were set in high school. Let's talk about that a little bit. What high school did you attend? And when you played basketball, what position and what number did you rock?
I went to George Washington High School, and I wore number 25. And I played point guard and two guard.
Hey, Steve, let me tell you this, and this is something I definitely want to talk about, but because of you, I have such strong roots in my Cutman resume in Philly, and boxing is such a huge part of Philly, and we're going to talk about that. But how big is basketball in Philly in the inner city?
Oh, it's big. You know what's funny, man? Good night, A. I when I was growing up, the three sports that we played were basketball, football, and baseball. And I was always a big boxing fan, but I played with my friends and my family members and stuff played. And then after I got out of high school, that's when I got into boxing. But basketball is huge in Philly. I mean, like the rec leagues and Philly produces a lot of players from the NBA. And it's just like it's like I guess the location that you live in and the demographic that you live in, like those are the kind of sports that you play. We're in Northeast City, so it's a lot of basketball courts. There's a lot of asphalt playgrounds, and it's just it's just something to do, especially in the summertime. It's huge. It really is.
Then you go to and you look at the success, over the course of the last 30 years of Villanova and Temple University, and all those players, that they've produced, and all the guys probably from Philly that were from the Philly high school circuit.
And Simon Gratz was the number one team in the country for a couple of years. They produced Rasheed Wallace, who played in the NBA. At one time, man, when we were in high school, there were like 5 guys. I graduated in 94, but in the class of 93, there were like 5 guys that all made the NBA. And Mike, you got sons that play sports. You know how hard it is to make it as a professional. It's one thing to go D1, but to become an NBA player is just like, it's like 1 in 10 million or something. But here, I think it was Rasheed Wallace, Jason Lawson, Alvin Williams, Tyrone Weeks, and Mark Jackson. They all went to the NBA. They all graduated the same year. It's like you never ever see that. Like for that to happen, that probably for a graduating class to produce 5 high school players from the same city, it's probably happened maybe like 3 or 4 times in history. It's like it's really weird. But Philadelphia high schools have produced. It's almost overpopulated because there's so many good kids that like everybody doesn't even get seen. There's some great kids that never make the NBA and they have to go to like JUCOs or things like that. I know some great players that couldn't even start on a high school team. Like my high school team, like we had 3,500 kids that went to my high school. So just to make our team, it's tough. Like you had to be able to play because you probably had maybe like 250 kids that went out for the team because it's such a big high school. So you got to be able to play to play here. It's a tough city.
And when you talk about when you talk about those things, I think about pedigree, and pedigree is something in boxing that you and I have talked about, and as we transition over to the pedigree and the history and the pride that Philly fighters, take around the world, and then when you condense that into Philly, then you divide it up into the rivalries within the city, correct?
Yes, yeah, and it's still going on now. In the Philly gyms, if you come up in the Philly gyms and you have a good trainer and good resources, you don't need a lot of fights, like amateur fights, because you gain a lot of experience in the gyms. At one time, when I first started training fighters, we probably had like 10 to 12 blue chip fighters all in the same gym, all at the same time. Somebody would be over here hitting Nazim would be on the side with Carl Dargan and Steve Cunningham. I would be on the other side with Julian Williams. You would have just so many pros in the gym at the same time. It'd be amazing, and it's like that now. Like the kid Jerron Ennis that everybody's drooling over. That kid only has like 50 amateur fights, but he got a lot of his experience in the gym. Stephen Fulton, who just won the title, he was in our gym. I'm talking about all of us at the same time. Jerron Ennis didn't train in our gym, but Stephen Fulton did. And he doesn't have a lot of amateur fights either, but you get so much experience with the different styles and, just learning. Like you may walk in the gym and just see Gabe Rosado and Julian Williams sparring 8 or 10 rounds. And, to us, Mike, since we're around, there's no big deal. But to people like a casual fan that walks on TV, you got to walk up to the guy and say, man, put your phone down. You can't take that,
It's kind of like the feeling you get when you go to Wild Card. I take it for granted because I'm there all the time and I'm around Freddie Roach or Manny Pacquiao and all these other fighters. But for the layperson to be able to walk in and just kind of absorb that and see that in a vacuum, it's like they just got in the gym and they're walking in with Kobe Bryant and Shaq and all those guys, and that's how it is.
Yeah, you gotta you gotta really kind of count your blessings, because you get to see a lot of different things, and you don't even really know it when you're in it. But when you step back and look on the outside of it, it's like, damn, I was really around that. So it's pretty. It's pretty
one
cool.
thing, I watched Fulton fight when he beat Angelo Leo, and having been around you and Julian and Karan, and I've worked with so many other Philly fighters. The one thing that people are surprised with when they saw Fulton, you think of a guy that's a very slick boxer. But let me ask you a question and be real with this, because I think Julian surprised some people on the inside when he beat Jarrett Hurd. Whether a guy's a boxer and a mover, I get the feeling, based on all my knowledge, and you know it better than me in Philly, that all these kids that can move, though, are dogs. They know how to fight on the inside, because Philly fighters take a lot of pride on, first of all, being very tough and really having great technique on the inside.
Well, I'll tell you this. Repetition is the mother of skill. And it's something that you do over and over again, you'll become good at it. And just because people in the media don't label you for being good at something, it doesn't mean you're not good at it. And that fight that Stephen Fulton fought, I watched him do that in the gym 250 times. And I'm not exaggerating. I got a kid that watches him.
Same, because when Julian beat Hurd on the inside, and there might have been some people that were surprised, and I always tell people this, and I know you feel the same way, everything that happened in that Hurd fight, it was not a surprise to me, because I had already seen it on numerous occasions. It was always there.
That's the plus side, gentlemen, of you guys being involved in that. And just to even take it back, you guys are inside looking out, but you really don't know how blessed you are on a daily to see Manny Pacquiao scratch his leg, put his boot on, or see J-Rock, just kind of stretching, relaxing, that another fan would just be, starstruck to see. And not only that, and you said, I'm not surprised, Nate Diaz said it best when he beat Conor McGregor. He said, I'm not surprised, because this is what I do. So for somebody to call it an upset in boxing is almost, they may not have the name, but it's almost an insult sometimes, because in our corner, as if to say, Mike, it's not an upset. It's not an upset that Manny Pacquiao beat Keith Thurman. People want to call it that, but we just exposed him and took him to deeper waters. When you were working with J-Rock, Coach, you know his potential and you know what he could become, and you still know his future. As to the media, they're bringing, he keeps his left hand. You can counter him off the jab. That's their job to nitpick. But I will say this: not all media is ignorant.
No, I get that. I understand that. And you know what, man? I'm going to tell you, before a fight, I don't even get into that stuff. I get people that call me all the time and tell me what somebody said on YouTube, what somebody said with this interview or that interview. I don't pay attention to none of that, because when you do, you let that chip away at your mindset. You might hear something, or somebody might say something that'll deter what you're doing. I don't get into that. So although I know the media says different stuff, when it comes down to my guys specifically, I got a guy that's going into a fight February 27th. Everybody thinks he's going to get killed. Karan Davis is fighting Anthony Durrell. So we're going to see on February 27th. If you guys don't think it's competitive and he's a 15-1 underdog and he's going to get knocked out, we're going to see on February 27th. That's it. I don't get into that. I'm confident in anything that I do. I believe in winning. I like money, but I put winning above money. And that's just that. So I don't blame the media. the only time I'll ever have an issue with the media is if they like, I feel like if they say something disrespectful where they like call you a name or things like that. But a person's opinion is their opinion. If there's a winner and a loser of a fight, and everybody has a right to pick who they think is going to win, and it's immature to get mad or stop speaking to somebody that, you know, says your fighter is going to lose, or, you know, or want to criticize. I don't get into that. As long as nobody's insulting me, I don't care. I don't get too high. I don't get too low when it comes down to insults or compliments, you know. And honestly, I'm telling you, I don't even like read most of it. You know, I don't look at the comment sections under none of my interviews. I like have compartmentalized that kind of stuff because it can lower your self-esteem and it'll make you, you know, it'll mess you up. You know, one of the pieces of advice I give fighters that I train is stay off of social media before your fights. I tell them that all the time because, you know, it's like there's no jurisdiction on social media. You know, you can run around with and say anything you want with immunity, you know what I mean? So, you know, that's for everybody else. Mike knows how I am, man. Me and Mike been doing it. You know, that's one of my only real friends in boxing. And, you know, I stay in my room when it comes to a fight. I might talk to him about some things that we're going to do. You know, he's one of the few guys that I trust, you know, and that I would even like allow around my fighters because this game is so messed up. You know, you can have people that's on your team when it comes down to your fighters. So, but I fly above that. You're supposed to win that fight. But if you beat somebody that everybody said that you can't beat, it's like, damn, you know, you guys did a good job. So, you know, that's not something I shy away from.
You know, it's very gratifying too, especially when you take a journey with somebody, and I have the date, and I know Steven has his date tucked in. You know, December 3rd, 2010 was the first time I worked with Steve and I worked with Julian, and I'm going to tell the story about how we came together because it's kind of a funny story. Because he called me up because Julian Williams was fighting on a Gary Shaw card on a showbox undercard out in California at the Chumash in Santa Barbara. And he called me because he was inquiring about fighting this journeyman that I have that was a tough kid. And he did the typical boxing thing, like, yeah, I got this kid. We're not really sure about it, but we'd be a good fighter, would be a good test. And I was like, man, this guy's, first of all, my getting in the ring with his guy because my guy's going to lose, and I like to win. But my guy was already booked for a fight. And this is a true story, Richard. I said, hey, but do you guys have a Cutman? And he says, no. The show's not big enough. They're not flying somebody out as a Cutman. I said, I'm available. And I drove to Santa Barbara, and I worked with him and Julian. And now Steve and I are in our 11th year of working together. And I think all but of about 3 or 4 fights that he's ever worked as a professional, I've been fortunate enough to be in his corner, and we developed that bond in the ring. And when Steve talks about, you know, going on the road and just being in your room, this is a true story, man. We'll go to fights. We've been to over 20 fights on the road together. And I bet you fight week, we only see each other, in the hotel maybe once or twice because because he's so laser focused on what he got to do. He's not out socializing. He's just in the lab getting ready to grind.
You know, I'm glad you covered that because I was going to ask you, how did you two meet? Were you guys on different corners, or, you know, now I know the story. 2010 and now, and it sounds like your relationship is even stronger than ever because it's good to be pals with somebody, but unless you have that continuity or that chemistry, most important, and know what a person's thinking just by looking at him, that's that comfort, and like you said, Steven, that's that trust.
Yeah, man, you got to know how to work a corner. You know, it's not as simple as people think it is. You know, you got to know who's going to go in the ring first. You got to know who's going to handle the stool. You got to know who's going to put the ice on the guy's neck. You got to know who's giving them water. You know, people don't realize that when I work a corner with Mike, I let Mike get in the ring. So he looks like the head trainer. And the reason why I do that is so he can get the guy's whole face. A lot of Cutmen get on the side of the ring and they got to keep turning the guy's face around, and they can only like see one side. But and then they got to like reach over and get in the guy's face. Well, if he can if he's right in front of the fighter, he gets to see everything. And then I can just be in the fighter's ear and talk to him, and I can go look on the other corner. So we got a unique way that we do things. And I don't know, Mike, how many fights have we worked together? About 40 or 50? I'm not even sure.
I actually have it written down, and we've only lost I think four fights together. So when you look at, and we're like at 96, 97%. And believe me, I guarantee you, Richard, none of us were happy over any of those losses. We probably didn't even speak to each other till we flew home like the next week. Because I know after a loss, he needs about 5 or 6 days before I even call him. Because the only people that are more sore losers than him are his kids. Because I've been at his house and I've seen them compete against each other. And his kids are great athletes. His son and Andres, and his daughter Ava, who tell your daughter's nickname.
Sugar Ray.
Yeah, and Sugar Ray is
wow.
There you go. So
there you go.
Apples make apples, because as sore loser he is, I guarantee you, if one of them just came down and lost the video game, you're going to hear one of them screaming at the other one and calling the yell. They are sore losers too. But you know what? They have that competitive edge, and they have that championship pedigree built inside of them, and that doesn't happen every day.
You know, you mentioned your daughter, Sugar Ray. What sport does she play? And nobody can just have that nickname. That's very significant. What does she do, and how does she uphold that nickname, if you don't mind me asking?
You know, man, it was a lot of when we were naming. She's my first child. She's the oldest. She's 9, and I was going to name her Eva because my last name is Edwards, and my mom at the last minute said Ava. And I said, you know what? I like that. And then, my wife said, well, what about Ray? Because you're a big Sugar Ray Leonard fan. And I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to do that. And so I just start calling her Sugar Ray. And man, I'm not even exaggerating. She's like, she's probably the most athletic person I've ever been around.
Wow.
She's like, it's like, I don't know, man. I ask my wife all the time what kind of vitamins was she taking. She's 9 years old, and she runs a 28 seconds in the 200 and a 14 seconds in the 100. And she ran a 107 this year. She only had like 2 races last year because of the COVID. She's number 2 in the country right now, and as far as 9-year-old girls in the 1, the 2, and the 4. I mean, bro, she's really athletic. She could crack off. I don't know how much working out she do, but she could jump on the bar right now and do like 13 to 15 pull-ups. And pull-ups are not like push-ups. They're hard. Yeah, she has like.
That's athleticism, because that's a lot of technique. You can be all built and big, but if you can't have the proper technique, you're going to do maybe 3.
Yeah. Yes, people can't. I got fighters that can't do 10 pull-ups.
No.
She's like really like wiry strong. She's not the most coordinated kid in the world, but I'm talking about like strength and going straight and back. I mean, she's like, my son is different. He's like more of a like, he can play basketball. He has a lot of moves. He plays quarterback with football, coordinated athleticism, but like just raw swimming laps or like running fast or jumping high or doing something with your like physical body. I mean, it's unbelievable, man. She has a 6-pack and everything. I don't know where she gets it from. It's like, I'm a pretty lean guy, but I just say God did it, man. She's a really, really athletic kid. So she gets embarrassed when I call her Sugar Ray. She's 9. She don't know who Sugar Ray Robinson or Sugar Ray Leonard is. But I always tell her that that's a hell of a nickname. You gotta, I posted a couple of her track meets on Twitter, man, but she can fly. She really can. I'm looking forward to this upcoming track season. She turns 10 next weekend. So I'm looking forward to this upcoming track season.
That's a great nickname to have, and you know what comes with it. My son used to wear number 10 in soccer, and they don't just give that number out. You got to earn that number. So everything that comes behind it. So you mentioned Sugar Ray Leonard being your favorite fighter. I was about to ask you, and this kind of goes with my next question. What got you into the sport of boxing? Because I'm hearing about your kids being athletic, and I know the Lord's blessed them, but you had to do something besides basketball. Somewhere down the line, you had a natural left hook or overhand right, or one of the two, or both.
I love boxing as a kid, where I was like taught about, my grandfather was a big fight fan and things like that. And I used to mess around with it when I was a kid, but I never got into it until after high school. And I suffered a really bad knee injury my senior year. And I just wasn't done being an athlete. So I just started going to the gym. I started boxing guys, man. I was just doing it like recreationally. Like I just was like, all right, come on, let's spar. When I start boxing guys, good fighters like Robert Hines and Yusef Mack and things, did a couple of exhibitions. Then I went to college and started, getting out in the real world and things like that. But I always just loved to do it just to stay in shape and things like that. And, I got to a point where I got to my early 20s. I'm like, well, I'm probably not going to be a pro fighter or anything like this, but I'm going to circle the block and I'm going to get into this later in life. And then, in my 30s, that's when I started training fighters.
Well, let's talk about. I'm sorry, Mike. Let's talk about Sugar Ray Leonard. Was he the first fighter that you saw, or what? How did you identify with him, where he became your favorite?
He wasn't the first fighter that I saw. The first fighter that I probably can remember seeing is Muhammad Ali and Roberto Duran. But he's the first fighter that kind of like stood out in my mind with the 7-Up commercial.
Yes, him and his son.
With him and his son. Yeah,
and Duran, and Roberto Duran.
Yes. And Lucas Haas played Duran's son, if you remember. But he's the best fighter that I can like go back on, like, because Ali was kind of old when I was a kid, and Duran was an American. So like Sugar Ray Leonard was the best fighter that I can remember, like the first memory of a fighter that I have, like where he did the bolo punch with Duran and he beat Tommy Hearns and things like that. And it kind of, when you look at somebody as a kid, it sticks with you differently, and he just stuck with me differently. And then as you get older and you realize what you were looking at, you like, God damn, he fought Hagler off of a layoff. He beat Duran when Duran was 71-1. He beat Hearns when he was 32-0. He fought Benitez when Benitez was 38-0. I'm sitting here and I know guys in this era, they wouldn't even take them fights. So as you get older, you start looking back. It was like, man, he was a killer, and I don't like to meet people that I look up to. I got like a little rule because I don't want to get to know somebody so well. I just want to, that I looked up to at one time, because I may find out something about them that would make me not look up to them anymore. It's just weird like that. It's
I've been there.
You never meet your heroes, So at the BWA Awards in 2019, Sergio Mora, he knows I'm a big Ray Leonard fan. He introduced this man and we talked, and it was really cool, but that's usually something that I don't do because I just don't want to, I don't want to find out nothing about anybody that I really admired like that, and, he could do no wrong to me in a boxing ring, and that's all I care about. You know what I'm saying? So I'm funny like that. Even at the fights now, you bump elbows with a lot of great fighters and a lot of guys that I really respected as a kid. But I don't say too much. I don't want to get too cool with them because it's like a defense mechanism. Like I don't want to know. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's weird like that. I just because people are flawed and fighters are flawed. You train fighters, you see all kinds of things behind closed doors that people wouldn't imagine. And I don't want to see that on any fighters that I looked up to when I was a kid.
I agree, and I respect that. There's that disappointment sometimes that comes with it. Unfortunately, everybody does fall short, and everybody is human. Unless you're like Mike. I mean, he puts out every single cut that he attaches, and he just walks the perfect line. Now, I'm giving Mike a hard time. Before we went on air, Mike was telling this great story. He was asking about how's the weather up there, and he started to reply. And let's get back to that, because I stopped Mike and I said, hey, hold on a second, because that's great content. I want people to know exactly where you're at and how is the weather out there?
It's bad, man. I got an SUV now. I've been the guys, all three of my guys that I'm training fight February 20th or February 27th. So we've had to go in the gym constantly through this weather. It's been taking me about 2 hours to go to the gym because the roads are so bad. But you got to do what you got to do, man. Hopefully it melts a little bit. we can get back on. And I got a couple of little special places that I like them to run to build their endurance up. So maybe we can get back to that this weekend, man, and do what we got to do. But it's tough, but it's part of the game. And me and Mike had a fight in freaking Detroit, and it was a freaking blizzard out there. Remember that, Mike? On the Devin Alexander, Timothy Bradley undercard. So, it's part of the game, man. I don't do too much complaining. The guys, they want to win, so you just kind of just got to grin and bear.
I remember it was snowing sideways, and when you think of Detroit, well, you think you're going to land and the arena is going to be, 5 miles away, and what you don't realize is that arena, that stadium, is actually in Pontiac, Michigan, which is like an hour and 15 minutes drive from Detroit. Now, when you couple that with a blizzard, and I'm from California, and I've been in snow a couple of times. When parents take snow, when it stops snowing, and you put your little boots on and you take pictures. But this was a real blizzard. This was a real blizzard, and it was funny because it was another time where the promoter wouldn't pay, for a cut man, but Steve and I wanted to work together. Between the two of us, we made it work. Julian wasn't making any money at that time, but it was something for us that was important, to be cohesive as a team. Knowing Steve as long as I have and as well as I do, Steve, is when you started training guys, and as you look to other trainers that maybe you, not going to say molded yourself after, but influenced you, who are some of the guys that even today you look to, and you, as far as their body of work and some of the attributes and traits that you can take from them that you apply to your fighters?
You know what? That's a good question. I never really had like a hands-on mentor in boxing. The Philly gyms are really rough and they don't embrace you, and the first kid that I ever trained happened to be Julian Williams. So the first kid I ever trained turned out to be a world champion. But, I never really had like somebody to sit me down and sort of like be my mentor in the gym. But the two trainers that I think have influenced me the most, and that was kind of like my mentors outside the gym, was Nazem Richardson and Virgil Hunter, for different reasons. Virgil Hunter actually reached out to me through somebody. It was like, I heard you were a very good trainer, and we talked. He told me the story about Andre Ward, and it was very similar to, my situation with Julian, and we hit it off. And we don't train in the same cities, but I would pick his brain about little things that he would like to do and things that I would like to do and things like that. And when I started training at Snack, I would go visit his gym out there, and just watch him work. Nazem Richardson, for different reasons, I like the way Nazem Richardson actually works a corner, like his cornerman skills, the way he talks a guy through a round. And my voice, I don't really talk loud in my personal life, but at a fight, I talk loud. So I understand how to talk my guy through a fight and through a round and, make sure he's getting into his flow, make sure that the judges know that he's into his flow. So I learned that from Nazem Richardson. And Nazem was just a real good, he knew how to tap in the guys mentally. He was like reassuring with his fighters. And I noticed that, he would say shit like, man, that was a good shot. The shot don't even land. We'd be sparring one of his guys and the shot wouldn't even land. But he was just so like reassuring to his fighters that I've just learned that, man, fighters are lonely. A lot of times they're scared. A lot of times, they have a whole lot of reservations about what they're doing, and they need somebody that believes in them, that's that's
get him through that round.
Yeah, so Nazem and Verge, they have totally different personalities, but those are the two guys that kind of like you see like a guy in the neighborhood and like the old head or the leader of the neighborhood, he sees like a young guy and he kind of like says, you know what, I like that kid right there. I'm going to take him under my wing. Like the movie Sonny and Bronx Tale. I
Yeah.
think they would as far as training, but in different ways. Like Nazim, he's used to the Philly gyms, so he kind of was like, you know what, man, you're doing a good job. Don't listen to these idiots. You're gonna get a world champion. Not many guys can say they had world champions. There's only been about 30 world champions in the history of Philadelphia. You're gonna make a world champion. He was like real confident in that way. And when Virgil Hunter reached out to me, I think it was like maybe around the time of the Super Six. And when he reached out to me, I was like, wow, because I knew who he was. I was at the fight when Andre Ward fought Alan Green. So I knew how good of a trainer he was. And I was like, really flattered. And I actually became cool with both of them around the same time. And, we kind of clicked. But I actually, I kind of like, as far as my style of training, it's something I would say I cultivated and acquired sort of on my own, but I picked little pieces of things that I saw, from them two trainers.
And me being there, pretty much the whole ride, I've seen how, you've evolved, that you made sure that if there was things that you weren't too sure about or you hadn't tried, that you made sure that they were tried and tested before you started, applying these things. And I talked to Rick Ramos, who trains Jessica McCaskill, and she has that rematch with Cecilia Breckhouse. And I actually passed along, your little method about guys being able to punch with technique when they're tired. The heavy bag drill where you punch for a minute, one punch, you punch for the other minute, one punch. And that's something that, once I heard that from you, that, that I try to impart to other fighters, because that old saying, practice doesn't make perfect. Perfect practice, makes perfect. And you mentioned it earlier about technique and habits. And I know how big you are on habits, both good and bad, because all that is always revealed in the ring, because the conversations that we've always had is your character outside the ring is going to show when. It's always going to show inside the ring as well.
And boxing ring is a truth machine. That is what you are. That's your character. Those are your flaws, or those are your strengths, and it is what it is, and that's just it's something. It's the little things. One thing, Mike, that you always say, I say it's the little things, but you always say the devil is in the detail. And, that's something that you always say, and it always sticks out to me. And I tell guys all the time, it's the little things, and I got this kid, Zachary Ochoa, and he's 21-1, and he only has 7 KOs. It's really, really weird because the kid can really punch. And I figured out why he wasn't getting the knockouts that he should be getting. And I'm telling you, on February 27th, he's going to break somebody's face. This kid can really punch. He has like electricity in his punches. It's the weirdest thing in the world.
All the way down to his toes, huh, Coach?
Say that again?
All the way down from his toes, right, Coach?
I'm telling you, man, he's knocked out. Like, he came out here from Brooklyn. He's already knocked out about 3 kids in the gym already. He can punch. He doesn't look like it. And I'm like, how does this kid only have 7 knockouts? And I'm like, you know what? I figured it out, man. Oh, man, I wish we was fighting on the West Coast, Mike, so you can meet this kid, man. This kid.
I actually worked one fight with Zach in San Antonio when he was a Golden Boy, and it actually was a first-round knockout. So we really didn't get to get to work. And I've actually spoke to here because he's a War Tape sponsored fighter, and I love Zach. I think, and I'm glad that you're with him, because I mean the sky's the limit of what you guys can do together now.
I'm telling you, man, this kid is. I don't know if I'm going to take him down to 35 or keep him at 140. He's 149 right now, 2 weeks before the fight. So I don't really know, but I'm really impressed with him, man. I'm like, he can fight, and the little things that he does. I don't want to get into him because it's, the game is to be sold, not to be told. And I don't want anybody to start doing this, but it was something I specifically told him to do to increase his punching power. And the next day he had it in the gym, and I'm like, damn, like anything that I asked this kid, he'll do it. He came to Philly. He's staying in the Airbnb for 6 weeks. And, he's been a perfect student, man. And, I'm I really enjoy training him, man. I think he has a chance to make some noise in the division if he shores up a couple of things, man. He's a really good kid.
That was going to be my next question. Coach, what do you look for in a fighter? And when do you know that you have that special fighter? As if to go back to your story when Sonny on Bronx Tale kind of took this kid underneath his wing, you as a coach, when you see something special in a kid, what is it that gets your attention, and what do you look for in a fighter?
You know what, man? You look for so much, you know, because every fighter is different. You know, obviously, you know, not going to lie, you look for talent. You know, when I first started training Julian Williams, I was like, damn, this kid is talented, but he doesn't know how to work hard. He thinks he's working hard, but he doesn't know how to work hard. He doesn't have any structure. You know, he's just kind of just doing things impromptu. You know, he doesn't have any structure. There's no method to what he's doing. He needs some structure. He needs to A, B, C. He needs to cross his T's. He needs to dot his I's. He needs to do things with his diet. He needs to do things in a specific way. You know, but I saw that he just had untapped talent, and I felt as though he had a big upside. You know, I look for, first of all, I look for physical toughness in the kid. If you have a kid that's not physically tough, then he won't follow instructions, because he'll be scared to, because he'll be scared that the punishment that he's going to take is going to be too much. So he won't follow instructions. I look for kids who are coachable. I look for kids who are engaged with what you're telling them. Once the kid thinks he knows everything, you can't teach him anything, you know, and that's a lot of times why, you know, trainers and fighters don't make it, because the fighter gets to a certain point where he's trying to train you on how to train him, you know, and you can't, you know, as if you got any type of principles about yourself, you can't have that. You know, I'm a weird guy, man. I look at everything. I look at the size of a guy's hands, how he shakes your hands. You know, people with really strong hand grip, you know, have a usually have a dense punch. You know,
Meat hooks.
I look for the way your legs are built. You know, there's endurance legs and then there's explosive legs. You know, I look for your posture. You know, what kind of posture you have. That's usually has something to do with your core strength. You know, lots of character things. You know, I look for a guy, you know, I'll sit in the side of the gym. I'll look to see who gets on their cell phone when they walk in the gym. I feel like that when you walk in the gym, you should be dressed within 5 minutes. Get your clothes on, get your stuff together, tie up your shoes, and go, you know, and start warming up. You know, if you're supposed to be, if your gym session starts at 2 o'clock, you're supposed to be dressed on the floor and ready to go before 2 o'clock. You don't walk in the gym at 2 o'clock and then take 15 minutes to get dressed and another 15 minutes to warm up. You know, I look for a kid who talks while you're talking. You know, so and now
that's a big pet peeve though, Rich. That might be at one of the top of the list right there.
Yeah, now that I've been doing this so long and I've had so many kinds of personalities around me, you know, I can kind of filter out certain things, so when I see a fighter, I kind of know who I'm going to get along with, because I don't need the most talented guy. I need the most disciplined and engaged guy. I need the guy that has the highest character. If you have a 6 as far as talent, but your character is a 10, I'll take you. I'd rather have that than a guy who has a 10 talent and 5 is character, because character lasts longer. If you have good character, you can bring out certain things as far as your skill level is concerned, so it's so many things that I look for, man. I look for fighters who invest in themselves. You'd be surprised at the fighters that don't want to spend money on themselves. That's important, and as Mike knows, man, I make sure everybody on our team get paid the night of the fight, so, and this is a business at the end of the day. Everybody's check has to be cut the night of the fight if you're on my team. A lot of trainers won't do that, and that's fine. That's their business. But if That's a character thing to me. If a fighter is funny about paying, the team the night of the fight, or he has a problem with I say somebody should get paid, I can't work with that guy no more. I've had people tell me I overpay Mike, but Mike's been with me a long time. We've never lost a fight, in my opinion, over a cut. Very helpful to me, opens up his home to us in LA. So we make some extra money. I'm going to make sure he gets paid. And if a fighter that I deal with has an issue with that, I'm not trading them no more. It's just that simple.
There's been great teams that have been dispersed because of that, because of
money.
You insist on no, not you, but along the lines. Even Evander Holyfield later on, as he moved in his career, didn't have the same team with him. Michael Moore didn't have the same team with him.
Well, it always
etc. And it sounds like you have your foundations and you have everything, your qualities in place right from the get-go.
Listen, here's how I feel about that. People want to start like
another one's. I'm sorry, Coach. Another one's Andrew Ruiz, and I'll put it out there, but that's fact. Mike, you know more than I do about that. That's fact. Manny Robles did an outstanding job with Andy Ruiz.
He did. And you know what? I think that what happens is, man, that a lot of trainers accept so much stuff that they screw up the market value of the job. So you'll have a trainer, let's say a guy makes $1 million, right? I'm just going to give a rough number. And let's say you've been with that guy early in his career. It doesn't even have to be his amateur career, but you were with the guy early in his career. You were going through the preliminary fights with him. Well, the going rate for a trainer, I'm not talking about anything else, but just strictly for a trainer, a head trainer, a lead trainer, is 10%, right? So you get to that fight, and then you'll get a guy tell you, well, it's $1 million, and you're not going to make this anywhere else. So take $65,000, right? And once you pay you a flat rate. Now, if I come in with a guy and he's making $1 million, it's my first fight with him, and it's like a 6-week camp, I might consider a flat rate, maybe 75,000, like 7.5% or something. But if I'm with a guy early, and if I took 10% of the $2,000 purses and the $3,000 purses, I'm taking 10% of the $1 million purses. And if you don't like it, I'm walking away. Period. I'm not arguing. We're not doing none of that. I'm out. You know what I'm saying? So you got to have a certain amount of principles in this game, because this is a dog eat dog sport. This is an animalistic sport. And there's a reason why you have to have a side to you that everybody in this game has a vicious side to them. Everybody in this game has a side where they could walk cold away from somebody that they at one time they cared about. You know what I mean? And I see it all the time. Fighters get to a certain point, they want to start offering, you a flat rate. Mike will tell you this. Every time we got a raise in the fight, he got a raise as a Cutman. Why not? Every single time. It was just about integrity. If we got a raise, he got a raise. I'm like, Mike, we're giving you a couple extra $1,000 this fight. That's just how I am. But so many trainers take so much shit from fighters, is where fighters think they could do it to anybody. I know trainers that get paid 3 and 4 weeks after the fight. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. I know guys that been with guys forever, and they don't even get close to 10%. They get what the guy feels like giving them. And it's embarrassing, man. So I just think that trainers, there's no union for trainers. Maybe it should be, but the trainers got to step up, man. And they got to be, you got to have some kind of integrity, man. You can't sell your soul for the association with a fighter. You would think it's $3 million fighters, man. And there's trainers that's still struggling financially, and they shouldn't be if they got a fighter that's making $2 and $3 million. And it's because they just let the guy give them what they want, man. And listen, I'll go to my kids' track meets and won't coach anybody before anybody gives me what they want to give me, and that's important in this game, man. And, everybody's not going to take to that, but, and it's weird because the trainer is the one that's slugging it out in the gym every day. And you'll get like some manager that comes along and pays the guy mortgage a couple of times, and that guy will get 33%. He won't even be sweating in the gym with you. It's the weirdest thing in the world, man. Man, but you just got to just be careful. You got to have a good judge of character, and you got to just know who to have around you. And the first time I see any sign of that, I'm going. Any sign of that, I don't want to be bothered with it, because I don't want to put any kind of work in, because that'll make me do something bad. I don't want to work with a guy for 8 weeks and then, I show up at the fight and then he wants to cut my pay by 20 or 30%. I can't take that. So, once I see that kind of stuff going on, I'm out of the game.
Well, it sounds, Coach, that you got your structure in place, and the respect that you have is very well deserved and very, very earned. It takes a very strong-minded coach longevity to have those morals in place. And the rest speaks for itself. So when they do approach you in your office, they know exactly what they're encountered for, and they also know the business side, or they will learn the business side firsthand. I want to ask you this, Coach, and I do ask a lot of trainers this, and a lot of them say, hey, Richard, I never do, especially matchmakers, they say they never do. When you take a vacation, and where is that place for you, Coach, of serenity besides the track field watching your kids?
I've taken a lot of vacations, man. My wife took me on a cool vacation to Universal Studios in LA for my 40th birthday. Let me see. Chicago, I love the Magnificent Mile. Vegas. We went to Universal Studios in LA and in Florida. I get my free time. I'm not a hermit. It's hard to plan too far ahead, because obviously, with fight schedules, it's not like football or basketball where the exact season. But I get my share of free time, and I spend a little bit of money. I enjoy myself. I don't go crazy, but I try to do some things, even if we just do some stuff in Philadelphia where we go some nice dinners and see some nice scenery and stuff. So I get a chance to do some stuff. It's not like all work and no play. I don't, that'll drive anybody crazy.
Well, except for Mike. Mike is a workaholic. I mean, Mike will work his job, and being a Cutman is no work at all. That's his Disneyland. That's his Universal Studios. That's the equivalent of watching the kids on the track, just like you.
I want Mike to retire. Why don't we get Mike to retire, man? I want Mike to retire from his job and just be a full-time
and open up a gym, right?
Yeah, I mean, he don't have to open up a gym. Just retire, man, and just lay back. I've been telling Mike to retire for about 3 years now. He makes a shitload of money being a cut man. He's the most popular cut man in the world.
He loves the suits. It's the suits, man.
It's aggravating to me, though. I want him to retire, man.
Yeah, I already know where he's going to go with this, because
where's he going, Mike?
He see, on the team, we have what we call the good-looking Olympics.
Okay.
There's a gold medalist. Are you guys there?
Yeah, I'm right here.
Okay,
I think Steven, I think you got to put your camera back on, Coach.
Wait, let me see. Hold up.
There's a gold.
Well, see, you said good-looking Olympics, and he's dressing now. There you go.
There's a gold medalist. There's a bronze medalist. I'm sorry. There's a silver medalist and a bronze medalist. And him and Julian would always argue about them having to argue who was the silver and the bronze. because they already know who won the gold. He's never forgiven.
I'm waking everybody up. Hold up. Wait, let me go.
The argument was over second place, Mike?
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Yes, it was over second place.
Yeah. Mike's crazy, man. Mike ain't the gold medalist on the team.
They're like, well, Mike, you are a little older now. You're a little heavier. Then they got to tell me, well, your weight fluctuates a little bit. They start nitpicking. They can't accept the fact.
Start looking for those flaws, huh, Mike?
Absolutely. I don't know what he's doing.
Man, Mike's just cheap, and he wants to hoard all his money. And he doesn't need any more money. He can retire. He can relax. He makes enough money being a cut man. Trust me, he can retire. It's ridiculous that he's working all the time. Lay back. I'm 10 years younger than Mike, and I retired. Okay, he can retire. Mike, you need to retire, man.
Just a little quick update. I can actually
Relax.
retire. I can actually go in 30 days if I want.
Wow.
30.
Oh, awesome.
Hey, very, very well earned, and it must be nice. Go past your 30 days, and as soon as somebody asks you to work overtime or just crosses your path the wrong way, hey, I'm out of here.
Yeah, I'm 2 days away from 2 bad days. Hey, Steve, I want to ask you this, and I know it's something you've always had your eye on. Do you foresee yourself opening your own spot? And what's your vision for that?
Man, I actually just bought a 3-story building. It used to be a bank, and each one of the first floor is about 2,800 square feet. The second floor is about 500 square feet, and the third floor is about 2,800 square feet. Wow. So I just bought the building. I haven't started any construction yet, and it's about 5 minutes away from a place called Fishtown, like a real, it's like a Manhattan type of area in Philadelphia. So the building's still in like an urban area, but it's 5 minutes away from there. So I look to really, do it up with each floor, like 1 floor boxing, 1 floor recovery, 1 floor strength and conditioning. Once I get around to it, so I own the building flat out right now, but I haven't had a chance to start doing anything. But I hopefully before the end of the year is out, I can get some funding up and do it, man. And so when I have fighters, they don't have to go anywhere. We can just do everything inside of this gym. It'll be like a one-stop shop. And that's definitely what my goal is with the building. So I got the building now. I just have to get everything in there. Next time you come up here, man, I'm gonna take you by there, Mike. It's awesome.
Yeah, I can't wait to see it. I believe you sent me a picture of building of the actual building, and when you see something like anything you do in life, you have a vision of what you want what you want it to look like. Mm-hmm. And knowing you've always wanted that one-stop shop. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man. Everything. I want the recovery in there. Everything. Man. And I think that'll take me to the next level, man. As far as being a trainer is concerned, man, having my own gym, and it's gonna be exclusive. Anybody just can't walk in there, man. You got to be like. You got to be serious. I don't want guys sitting around sneaking with their phones and filming sparring and all that kind of stuff. I want serious amateur and professional fighters in this gym. Now I may do
kind of like Freddie Roach's bottom. Everybody can go up to pay their $5 to the top gym, and only a very select handful of people can ever walk down to that bottom gym.
Yeah. I want it to be really, really exclusive, man. And don't get me wrong, I may do like a couple of white collar classes where, the moms or maybe the civil service workers, they can come.
Doctors, lawyers.
Yeah, I may have a little bit of that. I got some ideas for some midnight classes and things like that. But 80% of the demographic of the gym is going to be serious. I don't care about if I have 100 members and all that kind of stuff. I want serious fighters in the gym, man. And I'm 44 now, man. Maybe produce a couple more world champions, and then just sit back and smoke a cigar and watch everybody do their thing and collect the gym dues a little bit later. But I feel like I got some more work to do in boxing, so that's my goal.
Well, what are you gonna name it? What are you gonna call it, Coach?
I don't know, man. That's a great question.
Sugar Rays sound good.
Huh?
Sugar Rays sound good with an S.
Oh man, I don't know, man. I've had some ideas. One of my fighters, Karan Davis, he said call it the Breadwinners. I don't know. Maybe the Boxing Club. I don't know. I really honestly
or give each floor a name, Coach. Each floor, give it a name.
Maybe, I haven't really. I like Breadwinners, but man, I'm kind of like a humble guy, man. I don't like a lot of attention about things, I might just call it the Boxing Club. I don't know, man. I'll sit down with my people I'm close to in boxing, and I'll like see what kind of names they think of, and then the one that catches the most to me is probably
or the most meaningful. It'll probably just happen as soon as you open those doors.
Yeah,
Coach.
sometimes things gotta like be organic, like you kind of know it when you hear it. Like, okay, I can do that. So I haven't like decided on anything yet because I'm waiting to hear something that says that's it. You kind of just know it. Like when you go buy a new car or a house or something, you know it when you go in. You kind of know it when you hear it. So I'm waiting for that.
Hey, Richard, I know you want to get to this because I know we're probably running up on time, but I know you wanted to talk to Steve about some of the young guns in the sport because I know he's got good opinions on some of these young guns. Some of the Ryan Garcias and the Yankees and Teofimos and Tanks and stuff. And I would love to hear what his opinion on these guys are and what he forecasts down the road for these guys in the next year or two.
Yeah, exactly, Coach. I wanted to ask your take out of the four because that division could be the Roberto Duran, the Marvin Hagler, the Sugar Ray Leonard, the Tommy Hearns easily. When you got the Tank, the Teofimos, the Ryan Garcia, and etc. I mean, in your take as a coach, not just talent wise, but mentally, who would you say is the strongest of the four, and that you would bank on?
Well, I'm not telling you how to answer your question, how to ask your questions, but they haven't been through enough for me to say who's the strongest mentally yet. You know what I mean? I can't say that. What I will say is that I think they're all terrific fighters. But, calling them the Four Kings this early is...
I said the potential of sitting there.
True, but I've seen people nickname them the Four Kings, and, we got to just be careful. Not you, I wasn't saying to you, but just in general, because they haven't fought yet, and you got to remember something. By the time Sugar Ray Leonard was 25, he had fought Roberto Duran twice and Tommy Hearns once, and Wilfred Benitez once.
To win the bout, yes, he did.
So these guys, it's just different, and I don't like to keep comparing errors and stuff like that because it's really, really that gets on an athlete's nerves because nobody can help when they were born, and you can only compete in the era that you were in. But at the same time, I don't want to get premature with praise and start giving guys credit for things that they haven't done. Individually, I think all of those guys are terrific. Ryan Garcia has this really unique gift. I call it cat eyes. And he can keep his eyes open and he can punch while you're punching in the middle of your punching. It's a very unique thing. But that kid's going to knock a lot of people out. I don't know if him and Manny Pacquiao are fighting, but Manny Pacquiao better be careful. That kid can knock him out. Garcia hits guys in the middle of their shots. You don't see that. You see guys that can counter punch and they catch and they can counter, or they make you miss and counter. He can actually throw a punch as you're throwing a punch, and he doesn't lose concentration. And that's why his head is so straight up, and he can be hit too because he's locked in on what he's going to do. So sometimes your biggest gift can be your biggest flaw. But I can see Ryan Garcia getting knocked out a couple of times, but I can see him knocking a bunch of people out a couple of times. He's nasty. Devin Haney is an excellent boxer. He reminds me of he has like Floyd Mayweather's dimensions where he's about 5'8", but he has really, really long arms and a good jab. Haney's going to be really, really hard to beat. I watched him in the gym up in California, and I don't want to say the fighter who he was sparring, but it's a ex-world champion and world-class kind of guy, and he couldn't win a round from Devin. I mean, it was just like he was just dominating him. Gervonta Davis reminds me of a mix of Mike Tyson and Zab Judas. Very, very explosive. He's like an offensive dynamo. And Teofimo Lopez, I think, is the most well-rounded. I think he's the one that can win fights the most ways. He's very physically strong. He's also a big puncher. He can also box. He has really, really fast hands. And he's the first person that out of those guys that went into a fight as the underdog. It's easy to take fights when you nobody knows they're going to win the fight, but you can have a strong assumption that you're going to win the fight. It's something different to take a fight that most people think you're going to lose. So,
I don't know who's the best because they haven't fought, but I rank Teofimo Lopez above them because he took a fight that people thought he was going to lose, and he won it. And he's also, I think, he's the most physically strong out of them. You know, not just a puncher, but he has physical strength, you know, which is a little different. He has physicality. And I think it's another two other kids that we haven't named in that bunch. And that's Christopher Colbert, who fights at 130 pounds, and Shakur Stevenson. You know, so we're giving those four guys the four kings, but those kids are coming also. And I don't think there's a big separation in the talent level. Shakur Stevenson might be the most difficult to beat out of all of these young guys. I don't know who's the best, but as far as hard as to beat, because he has this, he's like a fencer. You ever watch Olympic fencing? He fences back and forth with his lead hand, and he uses his feet to escape punches. He has like this preemptive movement. He doesn't even allow you to think about hitting him before he jumps back. He's an extremely hard guy to hit with, and you can't hurt a person that you can't hit. And I also want to say this, man. You know, at 140 pounds, we have Josh Taylor and Jose Ramirez, man. You know, so this thing could get shook up a little bit because I'm going to be honest, I don't know if any of these guys can beat Josh Taylor in a real fight. He's bigger. He's more experienced in all of them. The dude's about 5'10", 5'11". He might beat them all in a real fight. So he may screw up all of this Four King stuff, you know, if somebody, because all of these kids are going to move up one day. And, you know, I don't want to count Lomachenko out. I do think he's getting a little old, but he could be the Roberto Duran of this and sneak a win over somebody, you know, and heal his body up because he keeps getting injured and stuff. So I just want to see. I want to see how this plays out. I want to see who's going to be willing to fight who. I want to, you know, because, you know, fights get made when fighters want to make fights. You know, I want to see, you know, Teofimo Lopez took the first step. But that's one step. You know, you can't live off of one victory for your whole career. So I want to see who he fights next. I want to see who else is willing to step up. I want to give these guys a chance to make these fights. I don't want to have this conversation 5 years from now and only maybe one or two of them have fought. Because if you guys remember, look what happened with Juanma Lopez and Gamboa. They never fought, you know. So we've had these mouth-watering matchups that just never came about. What about Abner Mares and Nonito Donaire, or Abner Mares and Guillermo Rigondeaux? They never fought. So we've had some matchups that we all looked at and we thought certain things were going to happen, and it didn't happen. So I want to I don't want to give these kids credit for doing something they haven't done. I want to see them do it. I would love to see the fights, and I think they're all tough fights. But I want to I'm curious to see, because in boxing, the way the status quo is, guys are getting paid $1 million to $2 million to take fights that they probably know they're going to win, right? And then they'll get offered, let's say, $3 million to fight one of these other young guns. And they look and they say, well, I can just keep making $2 million and beating up on guys that I know I can beat. Why would I take the chance of only one extra $1 million? What they don't realize is that the other guy got to get paid. So the young gun that thinks he's as good as you and did the same thing, he needs $3 million too. So that's what the pot is. So that's the reason why a lot of these fights don't get made, because of the economics of it. And Floyd Mayweather, Manny Pacquiao, and Miguel Cotto, that era spoiled us into with fighters who could create 1 million pay-per-view buys. These guys can't do that yet. They don't have the names to do that yet, and they want pay-per-view. They want that kind of money without having the names, so it screws up the infrastructure of the market value, and then you just can't get these fights. Like Terrence Crawford and Earl Spence, those guys are probably going to need $10 million a piece to fight each other. Now, I'm not saying that they don't deserve it, because I believe they do deserve it, but I just don't know where they're going to get the money from. That's the problem, you know, because they're making big money to fight guys that they're better than. So now it's a 50-50 fight. Those dudes want to get paid, and I don't blame them. I'm not saying that they're wrong, but I don't know who's going to come up with $20 million to pay them, you know, and I don't have anything to do with the behind the scenes, but I'm just guessing
They're going to need that because I know that I think Bob Arum said Terrence Crawford made $4 million in his last fight. I know he's not going to take $4 million to fight Earl Spence. I know Earl Spence makes big money, so I know he's not going to take the same amount that he made for, let's say, Danny Garcia to fight Terrence Crawford. So they're going to need more. So that's a little bit of the issue with boxing right now. But those are millionaire problems, man. I'm not so I let them figure it out. But I think that the general fan doesn't understand why these fights don't get made is because, when, let's say, a Devin Haney, his opponent may only make a couple of $100,000 while he makes a couple of million. But if he was to fight Teofimo Lopez or Ryan Garcia, both sides will have to get paid. So his numbers are not going to go up the way you would expect it to because the pot, even though it's bigger, you have to split it more evenly. So Devin Haney might make $2 million and his opponent might only make $300,000 or $400,000. Well, if he fights Ryan Garcia, he would probably expect to make $5 or $6 million. But the problem is, what's Ryan Garcia going to make? That's the problem with what's going on right now and why these guys can't get these fights. And nobody has turned themselves into a pay-per-view star out of the young era of boxers. I would say, for the exception, Earl Spence is probably a pay-per-view star. I don't consider Canelo. Canelo's kind of like, even though he's 30, he's kind of before these guys because he's been doing it a lot longer on pay-per-view. So he's a little bit different than all of the other guys. So these guys are going to have to establish themselves as pay-per-view stars, or somebody's going to have to figure out some money, pay a lot for some commercials. But I think it's a money issue right now. I try not to get into that, but I just think that a lot of the fans and the media, they're misled on where this money is going to come from, so whatever, hopefully everybody figures it out and we get to see some good fights because I would love to see these kids fight each other. But I'm not that confident that the fights are going to take place because I just don't know how they're going to get paid.
Coach, to me personally, what makes the most sense is Devin Haney and Ryan Garcia. That's the most evenly matchup, and you can go down to a pick'em fight if you wanted to, the knockout king, so to speak, or to get out boxed. And to take it back to some fights that never been made, Coach, we never got to see Ricardo Lopez and Danny Carvajal. I mean, that was in my era. I wanted to see that. It never took place.
Michael Carvajal.
Yeah, Michael Carvajal. Oh, I said Danny's his brother. I'm sorry. Yes, that's right. Remember that? Now, you talked about Jose Ramirez and Josh Taylor. Josh Taylor is not an easy out. We can't just count him out just yet. You got to remember, I mean, him and Regis Prograis, I mean, that was a great fight. I just think
Taylor is going to be the favorite over Jose Ramirez.
I believe so. But the winner's talking about moving up. I think there's too much money on the table for the winner to move up, and there's too much legacy left. We're talking about the potential of Teofimo walking in with all 4 bouts, the winner of Jose Ramirez and Taylor coming in that same ring with 4 bouts. It's either now or never, or we're going to be chasing them, and one's going to become a champion and one's going to become a contender. If you were the trainer or advisor of Jose Ramirez and Taylor, and whoever won that fight, would you advise to go up to the 147s or stay down for that big payday at 140? Not only that, but the legacy behind it of just the title in the match, in the aura itself of both fighters coming in with all 4 belts.
I know what you're saying. I don't really like to say what I would do because the thing is, I don't know if those guys struggle to make weight. And sometimes when the guys move, usually from what we've seen, that when guys win a bunch of belts, they kind of move up because it's like, all right, believe it or not, my man, most of these guys are fighting a division too low.
Yes,
and
I agree.
It screws your body up to keep making this weight over and over. It lowers your testosterone. It lowers your minerals in your body. It messes your mood up. If you're a 175-pound man and you got to make 140 pounds, because that's what 140-pounders walk around at, 170, 175. Eventually, it catches up to you. It's just not good for your body. What we're doing in boxing is archaic. It's not supposed to be done. You're not supposed to lose 25 and 30 pounds and take punches to your vital organs. So these guys are moving up because it's like,
how many more times am I going to do this? This is the reason why Teofimo Lopez is thinking about moving up, because you see how dense he is and how he's built.
His shoulders, his back. Yes.
If he makes 135 more than once or two more times, he could damage himself. You know, you got to be careful with that. So I don't know, you know, how much Taylor or Ramirez struggled to make weight. But in a perfect world, I would love to see Teofimo Lopez move up to fight one. I would love to see if Teofimo Lopez could get another big fight at 135. But everything is so slow, and these guys take so long to keep their momentum going. Everything is so drawn out. You know, I never get excited about a potential fight. I don't, because I just know how boxing is. You know, I'm excited for Taylor Ramirez because that's signed and scheduled. But like, I was hoping that Teofimo Lopez could fight a Gervonta Davis or Ryan Garcia or Devin Haney, but I'm like, it's not gonna happen. You know, it's just not the way this era is of boxing. It's just unfortunate. But it's just not, you know, and these kids, it's difficult because if you lose, social media kills you. They lower your self-esteem. They say all type of brutal things. It's embarrassing, especially if you lose by knockout. Look at the things they said about Loma. Loma's a great fighter, man. You know, trust me, no 33-year-old guy wants to deal with a guy like Teofimo Lopez. They just don't. You know, people can say what they want. Once you get up, you don't want to deal. You're not going to see nobody running towards that kid, Jaron Ennis. Trust me, my man. Nobody's going to fight that kid. All of these older welterweights, they're going to figure out for somebody else to fight him. They're not going to fight that kid. You know, so Loma deserves credit, because guess what? There's going to be a young gun that's 10 years younger than Teofimo Lopez when he gets about 32, 33. And let's see if he runs to him. It's not as easy as it sounds, man. You know what I mean? When you start slowing down at a certain age, things stop working the same. You know, man. You know, action wifey things work the same. Shit changes, man, when you get a certain age, man. You know, so I laugh at that when everybody wants to criticize Loma, and I'm like, man, you know, guys don't want to be bothered with that. I can remember Julian was wanting to fight Austin Trout. And Austin Trout's not even that much older than Julian. But Austin Trout had been around, and he had some fights with, you know, Canelo and stuff. And he was like, man, I'm not messing with that young boy. And that's just how boxing is now, man. So I gave Loma props for wanting to deal with a young guy like that, man. That's not easy. Youth is something else, man. It overcomes a lot of things. Yeah. So, you know, I hate to be a cynic, but I just, you know, the four kings, the original four kings, they fought 9 times, not including Wilfred Benitez. They fought 9 times between each other over a 9-year span. And I'm just telling you, man, I don't see that in this era. I don't. You got to have a certain kind of mentality to do that. You got to just like Chocolito, he's that guy. He fought Quadras, SSR, Estrada. He's going to fight Estrada again. He's that guy. He's different, man. Everybody's not like that. No Nito is like that. You know, he fought Rigondeaux. We didn't have to. You know, he fought Montiel. He fought now. I mean, Nito got to be close to 40. People are not like that in this era. We don't have fighters like that. Teofimo Lopez, he's proven to be that. And if he goes up and fights Josh Taylor, Jose Ramirez, he's that guy. You know what I mean? But this is a rare thing. I'm just telling you. And, you know, don't be surprised if maybe we get 1 or 2 fights out of this whole mix. That's how boxing is, man.
Mike, after hearing all this, man, I mean, he's pretty much on the money, Mike, because of all the political part, the promotions, the networks. You know, that's more than half of the difficulty. But the other half is just like you said, Coach. Am I going to risk everything and make $3 million, or, you know, am I going to risk not too much and make $2 million?
Exactly. You keep your longevity. You keep your pride. You know, your pride is priceless. And then when you lose, you take a pay cut. Mike knows you take a pay cut when you lose. So
let me tell you something. And I know it firsthand when you fight for a world title. And I remember, and he knows about this, is you make a certain amount, and when you lose, I remember the next fight, the fighter we worked with fought for a world title. He lost. I remember going to his next fight, and I remember losing money.
Yep.
Because literally go back to the end of the line because people just kind of they kind of like cast you off.
Yep.
And he said, man, it's a dog eat dog world, man. It's a survival of the fittest business, and nobody's going to hand you anything. If anything, there was more people out there hoping that it don't work out for you than hoping that it does. And that's just the nature of the game, man. And that's why you got to surround yourself with good people, because if not, and you got to have your head on a swivel, because we're blessed. Steve and I are blessed that we get to work at a high level with some good fighters, and we've had success. But I guarantee you, for everybody, every time Steve walked in the gym in Philly, and I've been to Philly, I know the vibe. Not everybody was at first really, really happy for Steven Breadman Edwards' success. You know what I mean? They really weren't. I know there were some people probably rooting against him, them same people that had been doing it a long time, quote unquote, that had never got to that level, that were still taking the bus to the gym. They weren't rooting for his success. But I know that drove him to be more hungry to dot all those I's and cross all those T's and wake up with his fighter at 3, 4 in the morning and drive 2 hours to take his fighter to go run at some track when everybody else was asleep. He does that. He doesn't rely on some guy to take his fighter out. He does that.
You know what? It's very. I'm so happy and flattered and honored to have a guest like you. In the first 5 minutes of the segment, Stephen, I already knew in my mind, okay, I got to have this guy back. I love his not just storytelling, but anybody can bullshit a story. You know exactly what you're talking about because you break it down in detail. And it's the little things that you notice when you're telling me a fighter and what you look for, you know, whether it's feet, his hands, if he looks at the cell phone, those little things, they mean a lot. Because if a fighter doesn't want to invest in himself, why am I going to invest in something?
Fighters have fighters are very entitled. So their whole career, they're going around, people paying for dinner. You drive them all around your area. They won't put gas in your car. They won't pay tolls. They're very, very entitled. So you have to kind of, I don't want to use the word child because that's not fair to them, but you have to instill some values in them and let them know that it's things that they're going to have to invest in and pay for, and that you're not a bank, you know, because you can get sucked dry. I know a guy who invested about 50 grand in a kid that's only like 10, 11 and know right now. And the kid, you know, is in his 30s already, and he's never going to get that money back, you know, and they'll suck you dry. So you got to be careful with that. And I don't think that it's a purposeful thing, but I think it's a thing where, you know, I'm a fighter, I'm going to be making $1 million. Everybody thinks they're going to be a great fighter at the beginning, and then they kind of realize where they are as time goes on. So you have to be careful. You have to set like your ground rules. You have to set your standards. You have to set your morals, sort of like you do your children. Like, you know what I mean? It's a shame, but you do. You have to like say certain things like, okay, listen, I'm going to give you this, man, but I need this back. You know what I mean? And I'm not a guy, I don't take a big percentage. You know, I've always been fair with guys because I know these guys are struggling when they start out. This is not, you know, a college football athlete that's on scholarship. You know what I mean? This is a different demographic. This is a kid with maximum high school education that usually comes from a lower class background, and he's trying to make it. And it's very hard for him to work a full-time job and fight. So then you have vultures in the game who will give them money, but they don't offer anything as far as boxing. They offer things monetarily, but these people want a huge percentage of what they make. So that's why fighters usually start out upside down in their money. And then you got guys like me, you know, I'm doing pretty good financially, so I can help a guy out, and I'm only taking 10, 15%, you know, and it takes me 3 or 4 years to get my money back. And then, you know, so you got to set like a certain ground rules with a fighter, and you got to hope and pray that it just works out, because, you know, you are rolling the dice with fighters, man. You really are, man. And it's tough, man.
But like I said, now I kind of know what to look for. You know, my next batch of guys, you know, I'm probably going to look for. I don't want parents that think they're trainers, but I want like involved parents who can help me with certain things, man, and create a some resourcefulness for the fighters and a support group, man. Because, you know, I'm getting older, man, and I can't be running around the way I used to, you know. And this is a very unforgiving game. And I know fighters that make millions of dollars and they come home with 30 cents on the dollar because they asked for so much money to get them to the point where they were at. They owe people. If somebody gives you things, they owe. So everybody has all these horror stories like, oh, God, he got all his money choking. Yeah, but guess what? Somebody paid his bills for 5 years. So that person deserves their money back too. That's how that works. Absolutely. Nobody gives you anything for free unless it's your parents. So if somebody's paying your bills for 5 years and they're feeding you and you turn out to be $1 million fighter, that person is going to want a ROI, a return on their investment. That's how this game works. You know what I'm saying? And with me, what I try to do, man, I try to plant a good seed of karma. Is where, you know, if I give a kid money, sometimes I chalk it up. Sometimes I say, give it back to me when you fight. I never go up in my percentage. You know, I've never taken more than 15% over a kid, no matter how much money I give. And I've given hundreds of thousands of dollars. You know what I'm saying? And I'm just a trainer, you know, but, you know, you just got to just be careful because you don't want to get taken advantage of at the end of the day, man. And, you know, you got to have people with certain kinds of morals that don't, that just won't suck you dry, because there's a lot of people that just think they could get in this game because there's no regulations, and they just get in the game and they just get murdered. They do, you know. So what my goal was when I got in the game, I said, what I have to do is I have to build a fighter that will make people listen to me, you know. So instead of training 15 fighters, I just concentrated on one in the very beginning, so I can make sure that I could kind of stamp my approval right then and there. To this day, I won't train over 5 fighters. It's just not enough time in the day for me. I got to give each guy about 90 minutes to 2 hours every day.
That quality.
Yeah. So I don't want to train like it's a production line. So I can't train over 5 fighters. To this day, I won't do it. You know, like right now I have 3, and I have a nephew that fight. He won nationals a couple of times in Florida that's thinking about turning pro this year. So he might be coming up here. And that's all I got, you know? I mean, that's really all I got. You know what I mean? If I'm jumping around the ring, I'm giving you 6 to 8 rounds on the pads. I watch them hit the heavy bag. I watch them hit the double end bag. I watch them do the calisthenics. All I got is an hour and a half, 2 hours a day. So I can't, you know, maybe Mike could come up here and help me out, man, when I open up my building, man.
Well, see, that's why you want him to retire. And you know what? I'm grateful, and we're grateful and thankful that you gave us an hour and a half today, Coach. I mean, it's been an honor, man, just hearing from you and not just your opinion, but your knowledge, and you're sharing that knowledge. And also Mike coming on today as a guest co-host. Mike, it is just so natural. I got to have you back once again as a guest co-host. We're working on some things. We also talked about some things and in the fighter's voice and in the growth. And Coach, hey, man, I appreciate you. Hey, man, go ahead and subscribe and hit that like button, man. And if you haven't already, I want to thank everybody that tuned in. I want to thank our guests, our guest co-hosts, our Cutman with the badge himself, who's near retirement, and we're hoping for that. So it'll be more time for the sweet science sport of boxing, and that's Mike Rodriguez. I want to thank our guests, the Breadman himself, Stephen Edwards, and all the subscribers that have tuned in today. And if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. That's www.youtube.com/thefightersvoice. Remember, every fighter has a voice, and so do you. It's a wrap. I want to thank you, Mike, and I want to thank you, Coach Edwards. It's a wrap. Thumbs up for Richie.
Okay, fight fans, it's not goodbye, but until next week.
Remember.
It's always voiceography at its finest. So on behalf of Richard Ortiz, Cole Escovedo, the special guests, and all the crew right here at the Kick-Ass Podcast, saying hasta luego, babies. And always, thanks for listening.